If you want to see something small, you might use a microscope. But if you want to see something really small, you'd use an electron microscope. And the reason for this is perhaps surprising and more than a little bit unintuitive. In order to be able to resolve something, the wavelength that is supposed to be doing the resolving needs to be either the same size as or smaller than the object. That means that if we saw exclusively in radio waves, we would be far too small to see and everyone would be bumping into each other all the time. The problem is that if you want to see something, say, as small as an atom, you can't use light. Well, you can, but not visible light. Visible light has a wavelength between 380 and 780 nanometers. For comparison, the largest stable atom, cesium, is about 0.262 nanometers. Don't come at me saying francium is slightly bigger at 0.27 nanometers. The point still stands. Thankfully, this gentleman has a solution. This is French physicist Louis de Broglie. De Broglie realized that particles that are moving have a wavelength associated with that movement. That wavelength is dependent on the mass of the particle and the velocity it's traveling at. And that wavelength is also tiny because it relies on something called Planck's constant, which is just a very, very small number that physicists like to throw in everywhere. In an electron microscope, you can vary the energy and therefore the speed that the electrons have. However, the most energetic electrons have wavelengths in the picometer range. If you don't know, a nanometer is 1,000 picometers. And that means that electrons have a wavelength small enough to resolve atoms. That is exactly what this picture is. This is a picture of atoms resolved by electrons, and I think this is one of the coolest images I have ever seen. The problem is electron microscopes are prohibitively expensive. They cost between a few tens and a few hundreds of thousands of pounds to be able to get one, then require constant upkeep and training to be able to use it. Whereas anyone on the street can go and buy a normal microscope and use it. This has been day 2 in my microscopy series, so please make sure you're liking and following along so that you don't miss anything. Leave any questions or topics you want me to talk about in the comments below. And until next time, I have been Dr. Alex Foden, the Science Wrangler, and I shall see you one of these days.